ファーストメルトは期待以上の結果に終わりました。GE レートの上昇率は当初の予測からわずかな誤差があった程度です。
バイオリズムコントロールも順調なのかね。
渋谷の GE レートは他のエリアと比べて高い値を持っていると同時に安定性についても特筆したものがあります。
それゆえに意図的に操作しやすいということか。そして渋谷にいる人々のバイオリズムを急激に引き上げることもまた。
実験結果についてはレポートをご参照ください。納得していただける成果を上げております。
貴様が成果を出すのは当然だ。そのために高い金と多くの人材を提供しているのだからな。
実効性については理解しているよ。この数ヶ月だけでも我が会の信者が数倍に膨れ上がっているからね。
それではプロジェクトノアは次の段階へと進ませます。よろしいですね。
コードサンプルの件はどうするのだ。すでに3人分は確保したとはいえ、目標数値には達しておらんではないか。
いかにも。数値達成のためには最低でも5人分はなければ厳しい。
サンプル保持者は集まりつつあります。あとは採取するのみ。
ならばその件は任せる。
信仰の救いあれ。くれぐれも慎重にことを進めるように。
はい、心得ております。
そろそろ寝るか。
Stifling a yawn, I looked at the clock on my PC. It was 5 a.m. I had spent another entire day grinding on ESO, but no monsters had ended up dropping the rare items I was looking for. I had been binging it for about 8 hours straight, but still no luck. Meh. That happened to me all the time though. I glanced over to the side of my computer desk. The D-SWAT I had bought yesterday was still leaning against it. I had set it there within reach of me so I could grab it at any moment. Speaking of the sword, the damn thing hadn't glown at all. I had been hoping that it would transform into some new badass form like the one Senna had, but I had been similarly out of luck there too. On my monitor, Grimm's avatar had just leveled up. My Nightheart was already max level, so he wouldn't go any higher. It's probably about time to make a new character, my third after Liselot. I thought to myself as I rubbed my sleepy eyes. XP sure was something. It was a well-known concept in RPGs, but I figured XP existed in real life too. Back when I had first started playing ESO, I had been a total nobody who didn't know right from left, but now I was known far and wide as lightning fast Nightheart, the most powerful player in base Lard. Let's say. The person controlling me had lost a chunk of my XP for some reason or another. If that would happen, then it would make complete sense why I had forgotten things. That could also be where the discrepancies in my memories had come from. Things like Shogun and the Demon Girl. Before a chunk of my XP got wiped, maybe it was perfectly normal for me, the person controlling me, to post in chat rooms under the handle Shogun, and for me to live like a complete normie with the Demon Girl. No, it wasn't possible. But it was possible. If it was possible, then maybe I used to possess an incredible power that wouldn't allow me to oppose the demon girl. Was I the only person who thought like this? I didn't really feel like it was a particularly weird way of thinking. Human beings could only really make judgments based on their own sense of values that they had come up with themselves. So maybe it wasn't just me living my day to day life making the wrong decisions, but everyone in the entire world. Back when I was little, I had gone to the dentist, and I remembered them telling me, "You did such a good job putting up with that much pain. You were a very good patient." At the time, I thought I was amazing for making it through to the end, and I felt really proud of myself. Thinking back on it now, though, that comment was probably based on the degree of pain felt compared to the progression of the cavity. But even if the level of the pain was the same, there wouldn't be people that could bear the pain, and there would people who couldn't. In other words, I came to realize that how someone recognized or felt such sensations completely depended on the person. Childbirth, for example. I'd often seen on the internet that women could endure the pain of it, but it would be completely impossible for men. Another example would be marathon runners. Maybe they excelled not because of their physical strength, but because of their ability to endure pain. There were also sadists and masochists. If there were people that found pleasure in being hurt, there would also be people that derived pleasure from hurting others. In other words, I believe that the way people felt things, along with their ability to handle pain and suffering, all varied from person to person. Perhaps the level of pain in the toothaches and headaches I got from time to time actually far surpassed the limits of pain an ordinary person could take. And if that were true, then perhaps if I had passed the same pain on to someone else, the sheer agony would cause them to go into shock and die. The conclusion I ended up coming to as a result of this line of thinking was more or less a self righteous delusion that perhaps I was special.
特殊な人間か。っていうか、何を大げさな。
Although I denied it, I was sure that every person had delusions like this. Every man longs to be the strongest in the world. Every human being wants to think that they are special, that they are the chosen one. We all want to think that a dramatic story full of twists and turns like the ones you would find in TVs and movies is waiting for us in the future. The so-called desire to be a hero, or to be blunt, textbook shunibyo shit. Of course, even I had those kinds of desires. It could very well be my destiny to triumph over the demon girl. But if that really was my destiny and I had to make it come true, I would need a number of conditions to be met first. At the very least, I absolutely needed the ability to use cheats, be it cheat codes for special attacks or maybe even a god mode of some kind. I didn't want to deal with any pain or fear. If I couldn't cheat in some way, or in other words, if I was supposed to achieve that with my own power, there was no way I would be able to do it. Which was why, if the person controlling me had lost all of my XP, that would be a huge blow to me, a super effective one. I just barely got to school on time. It probably wasn't the best idea to stay up playing Vidya until until early in the morning on the school night. I had to run in order to make it on time. When I got to the classroom door, I stopped and took a deep breath to try and catch my breath. I couldn't act in a way that would make me stand out to my classmates. For me, even something like being late would be fatal. If the Decun's eyes are all zeroed in on me, my life would be over. I slowly made my way into the classroom, keeping my head down. I couldn't let myself make eye contact with anyone. Of course, I didn't give a mindless greeting like "Good morning" either. Trying to make my presence as undetectable as possible, made myself invisible and turned toward my seat. That was how I always did things. And today was no different. I made it to my seat without any issue and sat down. Soon after, I laid my head and arms face down on the desk, and from me there, I was safe until homeroom started. But I only got to relax for a split second before someone's hand clapped against my back.
よ、タク。今週は3回も学校来てんじゃねえか。真面目だな。
Sumi-kun again. Even though he was really getting on my nerves, I would feel bad if I ignored him, so I started to reluctantly raise my head, only to hesitate. Was this Mizumi-kun? The real one? 2 days ago, I had done what the demon girl told me to do and called him. When I had talked to him, he had been clearly acting strange. I mean, he had told me that Rimi was our classmate as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, which I hadn't expected at all. Maybe the demon girl had brainwashed him. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe the person controlling him had been switched out.
おい、どうした？早くも爆睡モードか？
An electronic sound suddenly rang throughout the classroom. I felt a faint vibration near my chest. It was my cell phone. Shit. Now, of all times, what kind of asshole would call me at a time like this? Not only was my phone going off, but even though I was sure I had set it to vibrate, the ringtone was going off too. I guess I must have messed up the
お、
settings.
鳴ってるぞ、タク。
Yes, I know, goddammit. Should I just answer it? But if I did that, Misumi-kun would know I was faking being asleep. Besides, I didn't like talking on the phone. But also, if I didn't pick it up, would annoy the rest of the class, and considering how it was ringing loudly throughout the classroom, it had to be it had to be doing that already. I wasn't supposed to stand out. This was really, really bad.
おーい、出ないのか？マジで寝てる？
Damn it. While I had been freaking out over what to do, I had already lost my chance. I couldn't move now. Sound and vibrating stopped. The call must have gone to voicemail. I let out a sigh of relief soft enough that Mizumi-kun wouldn't be able to hear it. It was definitely the right call for me to have figured out how to use the voicemail function.
なあ、タク。相手は誰だ？まさか女か？この前一緒に帰ったあのメガネの子だろ。そうなんだろ？
Damn it, you're so annoying. I just wanted him to stop bothering me. The phone call had already made me stand out way too much. Had Mizumi-kun always been this persistent? Though he had always been way too friendly with me, I thought he had at least the capacity to take a hint.
やめなよ。
I heard a voice from right next to Mizumi-kun.
そっとしておいてあげたら、大臣。 なんだか疲れてるみたいだし。
She was here in my classroom, like it was the most normal thing in the world.
どうせゲームのやりすぎだろ。お前、タクに甘すぎるぜ。
だって大臣は女の敵だし、そういう人には優しくしません。
They were having a friendly conversation like it was the most normal thing in the world. She was blending in like it was the most normal thing in the world. I was too scared to look up. I didn't want to acknowledge that she was there.
ま、別にお前に優しくしてもらわなくても、俺には優しくしてくれる女はたくさんいるんだよ。
だからそういう発言が良くないんだってば。彼女さんが聞いたら泣くよ。今の大臣の彼女が誰だかわかんないけど。ほら、チャイム鳴った。先生来るよ。
Had the demon girl really been my classmate all along? No, there was no way. She hadn't been here 2 days ago, or at the very least, the only person that had spoken to me that day was was Mizumi-kun. I hadn't gone to school yesterday, so I wasn't sure about that one. But when I came today, she was here. How? How had she managed to worm her way in? Everyone took their seats once the sound of the bell announced the start of homeroom. Sensing that, I looked up cautiously. I surveyed the room with just my eyes. I wanted the voice from earlier to have been just an illusion. In order to prove that to myself, I needed to make sure that the girl was nowhere to be found in the classroom. I didn't see her. I didn't see anything that even remotely resembled her. Did that mean she was really an hallucination? My seat was in the 5th row from the front. There were 9 rows in total. She wasn't in any of the rows in front of me, which meant she was behind me? But I couldn't turn around. Couldn't allow myself to stand out. Damn it. This was so frustrating. Was she really here in my classroom or not? Didn't feel chills on the back of my neck. No one was looking at me. I didn't feel a gaze. Was she here or not here? Which was it? Still staring at the surface of the desk, I tried to detect her, but by just her presence alone. And right as I tried, I heard my homeroom teacher enter the classroom. I didn't remember the teacher's name. I had a feeling that it was Tsukaji or Tsukada, or at least something like that. He was a PE teacher that had graduated from an athletic college, and he was a total musclehead. However, he didn't really act like it, nor did he employ corporal punishment like one might expect for him to. If anything, he was a type of teacher that knew how to take a joke. For some reason, the class all started murmuring about something, but right now I was occupied with trying to detect the demon girl. Did I really expect to be able to sense her by presence alone? This wasn't some manga. Was I an idiot?
今日から転校生が入ることになった。
My homeroom teacher mumbled that to the class. Oh, so that was why the room was so noisy.
ほら、折原、みんなに挨拶しろ。
I didn't hear the supposed transferred student say anything. Was there really one here? I glanced towards the door. And sure enough, there was someone there. She was extremely petite. Possibly even more so than Nanami. She looked fairly timid, emulating that Moe gets bullied all the time archetype. If I had to choose, She was probably around mid-tier when it came to 3D girls. For some reason, she was looking down at the floor, her eyes filled with tears. The scattered whispers grew to murmurs as the transfer student maintained her silence. So, in order to comfort her, the teacher placed his hand on her shoulder.
どうやら折原は緊張しているようだな。よし、挨拶はいい。みんな、この子は折原梢だ。仲良くしてやってくれ。折原、席は一番後ろだ。席についていいぞ。
The transfer student made her way to the back without saying a word, keeping her head low to the ground. Her seat was 4 rows behind me. Should I pretend to watch her so I could catch a glimpse of the people behind me? Problem was that would draw a lot of unwanted attention to myself. I didn't want any decuns trying to pick a fight. All don't go staring at her just because she's cute or some bullshit like that. I was at a loss for what to do. Should I look now or should I wait until the class is over? My head still firmly pressed against my desk, I squeezed my fist tightly. Forget it. I was a coward. Just a thought that if I turned around, my eyes would meet that girl's sent shivers down my spine.
この人似てる。
Transfer student walked right by my seat, taking aback. I glanced at her face. I then realized that without even thinking, I had looked up. The transfer student stopped at my desk, if only for a split second, but she really didn't. She didn't look at me. In that moment, however, I saw that she was carrying what looked like an enormous slab of raw iron. What the hell? But when I blinked, the slab of iron was gone. What was that just now? Was my mind playing tricks on me?
同じクラスでよかった。
That was all she said. The transfer student then resumed walking, leaving my desk behind. Had she been talking to me? Why had she talked to me out of nowhere like that? I was like her? She was happy we were in the same class? Did we know each other? No, definitely not. I had never seen her before. Unless she meant to tell me she was some childhood friend who I had completely forgotten about until now. Yeah, no. That only happened in Eroge. Was I actually becoming popular after all? Or maybe. Could the transfer student be one of the demon girl's underlings? If so, then the demon's net was closing around me even tighter. I was running out of places to hide. All my new fears and doubts zoomed through my mind at 1,000,000 kilometers an hour. And before I knew it, homeroom had ended. First period would begin in about 5 minutes. Izumi-kun rushed over to the transfer student's desk. Knowing him, he was gonna try to lay the moves on her. The other students were clearly interested in her too, and the room had grown louder than usual. At a glance, it may have seemed like a casual, peaceful, ordinary thing. But for me, it was like being caught deep within enemy territory. My heartbeat was going crazy. Anxiety filled my head to bursting, and so much as lifting a finger felt like more than a one-man job. My brain was in the midst of a civil war, one side urging me to turn around, the other side warning me not to.
タク、
My breath caught in my throat. My mind went completely blank. A voice had come from directly behind. She really was here. That girl really was here after
具
all.
合悪そうだけど、平気？
I needed to run. I needed to run away as fast as I could. Despite that, my legs were shaking so violently that I didn't think I could even stand. And while I was frozen solid, the demon girl, Sakihata Rimi, circled around to the front of my seat.
汗びっしょり。風邪でもひいたんじゃない？
Just like 2 days ago, she spoke as if she were concerned about me. Just like 2 days ago, she held out her floral-scented handkerchief. I didn't accept the handkerchief, hurriedly wiping the sweat from my forehead on my own.
なんて。
何？
I couldn't look her in the eye, but from how she spoke, I couldn't tell she had a s- I could tell she had a smile on her face.
ねえねえ、さっき何話してたの？
Pimi crouched down, resting her chin on her hands. Now at eye level with me, she peered at my face. I quickly looked away. Felt like the anxiety would tear my heart right open at any moment. Damn it, why wouldn't she just let me go? Someone, please help me.
すっごく気になる。
What was she talking about? Who was she asking me
転
about?
校生。あの子がタクの机の横を通るときに覚えでさ、ボソボソーっと。
Poso poso to.
もしかしてあの子と知り合い？
Himi was still smiling. Was it just me, or was her tone more of a probing one than an actually curious one?
タクってリアルの女の子に興味ないんじゃなかったっけ？もしかして本当は興味あるの？
Where was she going with this? Was her plan to probe me for personal information and then exploit it for her own gain? At the end of the day, I really didn't give a damn about 3D girls, just like I always said in that sour voice of
じゃあさ、
mine.
じゃあさ、私にも実は興味あったりする？
An icy chill ran down my back. Despite having just wiped the sweat off my forehead, I could feel moisture all over it. Was that a threat? Or could it be that she was inviting me to become her ally? Or maybe she intended to seduce me, acting all moe so she could lure me into a trap. All sorts of alarm bells were going off in my head. I shouldn't be talking to the demon girl anymore, but did I would be signing my own death warrant.
あ、タク？
I had hit my breaking point. In a panic, stood up and dashed from the exit, knocking into several desks on my way out. I ran straight up the stairs without looking at anyone and came out on the empty roof. It didn't seem like she had chased me. Even so, I couldn't allow myself to relax just yet. So I hugged my knees and decided to hide for a little while in the shadows. My knees were trembling. I couldn't believe that I had managed to run in this condition. I guess it just showed how desperate I was. I was tired of this reality. The D-Sword I had gone out of my way to buy hadn't been useful in the slightest. I obviously couldn't bring it to school with how much it would stand out either. I had been careless. 2 days ago, when Mizumi-kun had told me that Rimi was our classmate, I had figured that he was either spewing some bullshit or just outright deluding himself. But she really was my classmate, or at the very least, she had become one. There was no point in trying to figure out how she had managed to worm her way in. She was a demon. She could do things that humans were incapable of with ease. Maybe she had brainwashed my whole class, or maybe she had brainwashed all the teachers instead. I couldn't go to the hospital anymore, and now I couldn't go to school either. Meanwhile, Yua was at cafe, and Shogun always appeared online. The demon girl and her underlings were no doubt getting closer and closer to me, continually hitting me with psychological attack after psychological attack as they did it. Maybe I shouldn't leave my base at all anymore. There were enemies and danger at every turn in reality. They had disturbed me and threatened my peace, even though all I wanted was to live a quiet life, bothering nobody and being bothered by nobody. I looked up at the blue sky. It floated calmly above me as the wind blew white clouds across its breadth. How nice would it be if I could become one of those clouds? Around 3 hours had passed. I had stayed in the same place the entire time without moving. I didn't sense anyone else coming up at the moment. I could finally breathe. The problem, however, was what came after. During break, there would always be students that would come up here to eat lunch. That was why the best way out of this was to escape during fourth period and make a break for my base. It had messed up my minimum attendance chart, but I didn't possess even a single ounce of courage that would allow me to return to the classroom where the demon girl was. I decided not to worry about the fact that I had left my bag in the classroom. All I had in there were textbooks. My wallet, my keys, and anything else important would be in my uniform pocket. I hoped. Growing slightly nervous, I searched my pockets. Wallet, keys, cell phone, they were all there. It was when I remembered that someone had called me. I had been pretty freaked out at the time, but not as much as when Remy had talked to me.
一体誰だ
I couldn't think of anyone who would call besides my family. Would make the most sense if it was Nanami. She never thought about whether she might be bothering me after all. The only other people who'd know my number would be, oh wait, that's right. I'd given it to those detectives. If it had been one of them, I really should have picked up. They still hadn't sent the officers to my base like they had said they would, so I really needed to talk to them to make sure that was still happening. The caller's phone number was displayed on the screen. It didn't seem to be Nanami's, and when I looked closer, I saw that I had a new voicemail. I had the vague feeling that I had seen this number before, just in case. I checked the call history. There were only 5 calls on the list, which meant that since I had bought the cell phone, I had only received 5 calls, 3 of which were from Nanami. That left 2 others. The one from earlier today and the one from 5 days ago were shown as numbers instead of names, as they hadn't been registered in my address book. They were both from the same number, 03X733X991. Considering they had gone out of their way to leave a message, it was probably someone who really wanted to tell me something. Who was it? Maybe it really was the police. It couldn't be Misumi-kun or the demon girl. They had both been right in front of me when I had gotten the call. So if it wasn't, then the only other possibility would be Yua? But she wouldn't have known my phone number, and besides, there was nothing else for us to talk about. Time to just get it over with and listen to it. I examined, I examined, I examined, wie auch immer, my surroundings, making sure the demon girl wasn't there, then put the phone up to my ear.
こちらは留守番電話サービスセンターです。新しいメッセージは1件です。1件目、10月17日金曜日午前8時28分の伝言です。
なんぞこれ。
Instead of someone's voice, there was an incredibly familiar melody. Felt like the sound of being recorded from a short distance away from the phone. Maybe the person on the other hand was near a pedestrian signal. The song being played was one you would hear pretty often at crosswalks. It was used in order to let people with visual disabilities know when it was okay to cross. The song was a nursery rhyme called You May Pass, also known as Torianze. While there were a lot of people that knew the melody, there weren't many who knew the lyrics. Oh, and I was one of them actually. I had memorized them back in middle school. Then again, it wasn't like I remembered them perfectly now. You may pass. Where shall this narrow path take us to? It is the path to Tenshin Shrine. Please, oh please, will you let us pass? Those with no business will not be let through. To celebrate the 7 years, we have come with an offering. Going may prove easy, but returning is... Schön, dass es automatisch wegging gerade. But returning is wee was what I heard from the phone. Sounded like an ambulance, which felt kind of like a bad omen. Nah, it likely didn't actually mean anything, but it still made me feel pretty creeped out. The second after the traffic signal melody got cut off, an extremely loud noise that sounded like a buzzer exploded from the speakers. It was so ridiculously loud that I had automatically shot the phone away from my ear.
なんだ
When I cautiously brought the phone back to my ear, the voicemail had already stopped playing. What was that? Right at the end there. I thought I had just barely had a roaring noise. It had sounded like the ground itself was rumbling. The buzzer sound was completely separated from the pedestrian signal melody. Considering how loud it had been, the only thing I could think of was that the phone's receiver had deliberately been put up next to whatever had made that noise.
いたずら
My heart began to pound. Had I done something to make someone hate me enough to do that? Who would even call me in the first place? I could call them back by dialing the number displayed on my phone. but there was no way I would be able to call back a prank caller. In the end, all I could do was just leave it be. Besides, I was stuck in the middle of a situation far worse than any prank call. I returned my phone to my pocket and ever so carefully left the school, making sure to pay close attention to my surroundings as I escaped. Nichijou Takumi's alma mater, Kitasawa Second Elementary School, was about a 5-minute walk from the private train station. Ban Yasuji had attempted to contact Takumi's elementary school teacher over this phone, only to be told that they had unfortunately passed away. Left with no other choice, Ban had decided to set up a meeting to speak with the person who had answered the phone instead, the head teacher Kamiyo. Not long after, he had arrived at the school together with his partner. As it was a Saturday, the school gate was closed. Two detectives, Ban and Suva, stopped in front of it and turned their attention towards the school building. The white walls of the school's exterior had been painted with a brightly colored, eye-catching mural. Due to his complete lack of knowledge on paintings or any kind of fine art, Ban had no idea what it signified, but the way the spiral-shaped mural transitioned vertically into an array of 7 different colors reminded him of a rainbow. As Ban stared at the mural, cooling himself with his handheld fan, his partner Suva pushed the intercom button next to the school gate. Suddenly, Ban looked around. He had a feeling that someone was watching him. There was a gaze that seemed to follow him everywhere, leaving him quite discomfited.
俺ってそんなにかっこいいか？
He attempted to strike a casual pose, one that aimed to be dandy and refined.
先輩、何変なポーズしてるんすか？
Wow.
裏門の方に通用口があるんで、そっちに回ってくれって。
Band retired from his pose with a sigh and headed towards the back of the building. The staff room was easy to find. As soon as they entered through the side door, all they had to do was travel down the rear entrance hallway and turned at a single corridor to arrive at the room. There was, of course, no sign of her children in the school. Although it was likely a mere illusion created by the smooth linoleum floor, the two detectives felt far colder inside the building than they had outside. There were 3 teachers in the staff room. Upon seeing the 2 detectives entering the room, one of the 3 stood up and bowed. The man who stood up was named Cameo. His mostly white hair was parted to the side, and he greeted the 2 of them with a gentle smile. Ban and Sua showed their police badges to him almost simultaneously returned his greeting briefly, then immediately approached the topic at hand. It was Sua's job to ask the questions.
ここの卒業生である西条匠くんについて教えていただきたいんですが。
彼のことは印象に残っています。
私は担任ではなかったから詳しくとなると無理ですが、それでも構いませんか。
Suba nodded, taking out his notebook and preparing to write everything down.
西条くんはどんな子だったんすか？
難しい子だと聞いていました。特殊だと。
特殊？
本来なら他の生徒に混ざって勉強するのはとても困難な、病気を患っていたらしく。
具体的には？
そこまで私が言ってしまっていいのかどうか。ご家族なり医師なりに聞いていただけますか。
Schools had recently begun adopting this approach, where they would avoid any issues that may prove difficult to them. They refuse to take part in anything that may earn them complaints from parents or any other parties. Such practices made it incredibly difficult for the police to do their jobs.
担任の先生はなんで亡くなったんです？
事故です。遠足の最中、乗っていたバスが陥没した道路に。
あ、自分それ知ってるっす。ニュースでやってたっすよね。
子供たちは怪我をしただけで、幸い命は助かったのですが、斉藤先生だけが犠牲になってしまい、なんともやりきれない思いです。
西条くんもその事故に巻き込まれた。
In response to Bun's question, Kamil shook his head lightly.
あの子は当日欠席していて、バスには乗っていませんでした。
欠席の理由は？
病が悪化したと聞いたような覚えがありますが。
Bun too had a faint recollection of the accident. For multiple days following the incident, the short glimpses Bun caught of the news, he would always see the media swarming the house of the soul boy who had not been involved in it.
あれは悲しい事故だったんですよ。
For some reason, while Kamio was repeating himself, he placed a strong emphasis on the word accident. I had started talking with Grim a lot more before booting up ESO recently, to the point where it was becoming almost like a ritual. It never really mattered what we talked about. We had we had trade interesting or funny ad channel threads, go off about porny shit, wreck each other new comics, talk about the anime from the day before or other various dumb stuff. Funnily enough, we didn't actually talk about ESO very much, but that was just because we already talked a lot about it while we were playing it. Has there been some weird-ass prank going around recently? Not a lot to go off there, deeds please. I don't know. I just heard about it from someone I know. Don't know if it's actually a fad or some shit. It's like there's a recording of a weird sound and you get that as a voicemail or something. What? Like a mobile voice whispering sweet nothings to you? Lol lol. The fuck Lemao? What eroge is that from? I mean, wouldn't you rather them just do that to you in person, lol? No one cares now, those fucking eyes or those eyes. He was still saying that. Thanks to that, I started to feel awful pretty much immediately. Not to mention, he was talking really weird in chat, to the point where it felt fairly forced, like he was trying way too hard to be funny by shoving these words in. Yo, Pika! Ja, ich habe überlegt, dass ich relativ bald Feierabend mache, weil ich habe vorhin schon so um die 6 Stunden Zelda gestreamt. Und so langsam aber sicher muss ich jetzt öfter Pausen machen, weil ich die ganze Zeit am Husten bin hier. Dementsprechend, ja, denk mal, nicht mehr allzu lange. Aber danke, dass du reinschaust. At very least, I didn't find it funny. In fact, it felt more cringy than anything. But I couldn't let myself get angry with him until I had gotten my info about the prank. So I was forced to put up with it. So. Okay, so it's like the sounds of a wild otaku freak fabbing then? Lol. Okay, that's too far. But in all seriousness, they play You May Pass. You May Pass? What? Like the song? The one that plays at Crossroads and shit? Yeah, that one. And then while it's playing, it will get cut off halfway and swapped to a buzzer-like sound. Apparently the volume is ear-raped here. So yeah, ever heard of a prank like that? That's the kind of thing you would find floating around at channel, right? Yesterday I had gotten a voicemail with a mysterious buzzer sound. I had no idea who had sent it, and the contents unsettled me for some reason, which was why I had decided to try and ask Grim if he knew about it. If it was just a simple prank, I could just forget about it. Grim wasn't responding. Why was he being silent? Hello? Did you die? Still no response. Grim didn't usually fall asleep like this. In fact, this was the first time it had ever happened. If he actually had fallen asleep, then I guess I would just log off. We had met up again late. We would meet up again later in ESO anyway, so I could just bring it up again then. But the second I thought that and began to get up from my chair, kept you waiting here, was sifting through Ed Channel, was looking for stuff about your prank. Oh, that was why he had disappeared. But that meant that even the oh so well informed Grim hadn't known about the prank. But no matter how many threads or bots or whatever I searched, I found nothing. Not on Ed Channel nor anywhere on the net. Huh. So would that mean that whoever had pulled that prank had some sort of personal grudge against me? I was still curious about the true identity of the caller, but I wasn't brave enough to call them back. Wait, that's it. Since I knew the phone number, that meant I could have someone else call it for me. That way they could take the fall. Best person for the job would be either Nanami or Misumi-kun. Wait, Misumi-kun may have been brainwashed by the demon girl, so that wouldn't work. As for Nanami, however, I was sure I would have no trouble asking her to do it. She would probably get pissed at me afterward, but who gives a shit? Hell, if anything, it would be good for her to suffer the tortures of society every once in a while. I thanked Grim for his help, promised that I would meet back up with him on ESO in a few hours, and closed the chat. Right as I did so, I felt my stomach growl. Man, I was hungry. Did I have any cup ramen stocked anywhere? I tried looking around for a bit, but I couldn't find any. Reluctantly, I decided to head to the convenience store to buy some. The sun was already setting. I wanted to avoid going out late at night as much as possible, because every time I did recently, nothing good ever came of it. unconsciously started walking faster, hurrying down the road towards the convenience store. Today was Saturday, so I had expected to run across a ton of pedestrians, but I hadn't encountered a single one so far. All of the stores that should have been open were closed, which kind of weirded me out. Maybe I was just confused. Like maybe I had thought it was 7 p.m. when it was actually 2 a.m. Yeah, like that would ever happen. Fuhihi. But even so, it was way too quiet. I could barely hear any of the normal city sounds you would expect. The aura the city was giving off was different than usual. I arrived at the Shinsen Station convenience store. It was right in front of the train station, and yet there wasn't a single person here either. I was starting to get more and more freaked out. The sudden disappearance of something I had taken for granted was enough to make me feel like I had been transported to a completely different world. On a normal day, I would always avoid running into or talking to other people, but all I wanted right now was just to see another person's face. I burst inside the convenience store. There has to be someone working here, I thought to myself as I looked around the store. There's no one here. There were no customers nor any employees.
まさか。
This couldn't be happening. An employee had to be in the back. If I were to just bring something up to the register, they should come out right after. So I decided to leisurely grab a boxed lunch, pretend to flip through a manga magazine while I was at it, and then come up to the counter and set the box down. No one's coming out. I tried restlessly looking around the store. No one's coming out. Took out my wallets to make sure I had change. No one's coming out. I picked up the boxed lunch and set it down again, making a small noise. No one's coming out. Couldn't get myself to call out, "Excuse me," or anything like that. If there was, I couldn't even if there was no one there here. No one's coming out. I thought about testing to see what would happen if I tried to leave without paying, but then I decided that it wasn't worth the risk of getting arrested. No one's coming out. The employee must have gone to take out the trash. No one's coming out. Or they were checking the inventory in the warehouse out back. No one's coming out. After enough time had passed, I started feeling scared. So I put the boxed lunch back on the shelf and left the store. I opt to go to the railroad crossing located right next to the station. From there, I would be able to see the Shinsen station platform. There was no way a place like that would be deserted, right? That was what I hoped, but there was no one there. I waited for a train to come. Once that happened, there would be a bunch of passengers that would get off. But even if no one got off, it would definitely see people riding the train as it passed in front of me. Even after 10 minutes, the train still hadn't come. I tried to convince myself that there must have been an accident or something that had messed up with the schedule, but there was no sign of any passengers on the platform. It was then that I finally realized the gravity of the situation. This was weird. This was really, really weird. That's it. I will go to Shibuya Station. There absolutely had to be people there. No doubt about it. There were people in front of Shibuya Station 24/7, without a fail. I broke into a run without thinking. I ran as hard as I could. I didn't want to stop even if I was out of breath. It was probably the first time in my life that I had ever run so hard. As I ran, I hoped that this was just some sick dream I was having, but I knew it wasn't. My heart and lungs felt like they were about to explode. The pain was far beyond what you could feel in a dream. It surpassed me. It surprised me how unbelievable fast I was breathing. And yet, no matter how much I inhaled, the pain refused to go away. As I kept running down Dogen Saka, I finally saw 107. By the time I did, my legs were already shaky, my body felt extremely heavy. Even so, I forced my feet to keep moving. I no longer had it in me to pay attention to my surroundings. The entirety of my consciousness was focused on Scramble Crossing, the symbol of Shibuya. Almost there, just a little bit farther, the second I passed 107, it would be right there. The largest in Japan. It was the place where the largest number of people in Japan came together all at once. That was why. That was why I had to get to Scramble. To Scramble. Empty.